once did he win outright. Every single victory came down to a playoff, sudden death, one swing deciding everything. Most golfers chase a knockout win. Lowery never got one, and somehow that became his trademark. But the moment that truly defines his career has nothing to do with a playoff at all. It involves a bird that decided to get involved in professional golf. This is the story of Steve Lowery, the man who left everyone speechless. Steve Lowery was born on the 12th of October, 1960, in Birmingham, Alabama. Golf was never forced on him. Both of his parents played the game, and as a young boy, he simply tagged along to the course with them. Years later, asked who introduced him to golf, Lowery kept the answer simple. I was 8 or 9 years old. Both my parents played, so I would go with them to the course. There was no dramatic origin story, just a family that happened to love the game. One detail did stand out, though. His grandfather was Smokey Harper, a man who once worked alongside legendary football coach Bear Bryant, part of the famed Junction Boys at Texas A&M. Sports ran deep in the family, even if it wore a different uniform. By his late teens, Lowery had already won the Birmingham Golf Association Junior and the State Junior titles. Early signs that the casual rounds with his parents had turned into something more serious. Lowery accepted a golf scholarship to the University of Alabama, joining the program under legendary coach Conrad Railing. He played there from 1979 to 1983. The breakthrough came early. In 1981, Lowery became the first player in the history of Alabama golf to win both the State Open and the State Amateur in the same year, a feat no one before him had managed. The following year, he added the Southern Amateur title to his resume, further proof that his game had outgrown junior golf. 2 seasons later, he reached the peak of his amateur career. In 1982, and again in 1983, Lowery was named Southeastern Conference Player of the Year and earned All-American honors, back-to-back recognition that marked him as one of the finest college golfers in the country. It was during these years under Railing that Lowery developed the steady, mistake-free game that would define his approach to the sport for the next 3 decades. On paper, everything pointed toward an easy transition into professional golf. A scholarship athlete, 2 SEC Player of the Year awards, All-American status, twice over. The reality waiting for him on tour would look nothing like that. College success did not translate into an easy start on tour. Lowery graduated in 1983, but it took him nearly a decade to secure a permanent place on the PGA Tour. He earned his card in 1987 through qualifying school, only to lose it the very next year, finishing 157th on the money list. What followed were several lean years. Without a guaranteed spot, Lowery survived on sponsor exemptions and a now defunct loophole that allowed players to compete if they earned as much as whoever finished 150th on the previous year's money list. He held that special status in 1990 and again in 1991, status that came with no guarantees beyond the following week. It was not a career. It was a series of temporary lifelines. For golfers, the tour card works like a license to compete. Lose it, and there is no guaranteed entry into tournaments, no steady income, no real career to speak of. Most players who fall into that gap never find their way back. Lowery spent the better part of 5 years living in that uncertain middle ground, good enough to keep playing, never quite secure enough to relax. He refused to disappear quietly. In 1992, he won the Ben Hogan Tulsa Open on the developmental tour, finishing 3rd on that tour's money list, good enough to earn back his full PGA Tour card for 1993. 9 years after leaving college as a 2-time All-American, Lowery finally had a real foothold on the PGA Tour. The breakthrough was still 1 year away. 1994 became the finest season of Lowery's career. He finished 12th on the PGA Tour money list, his best ranking ever. The breakthrough arrived at the Sprint International. Playing under the Stableford scoring format, Lowery finished tied with Rick Fair at 35 points through 72 holes. The two went to a playoff, and on the very first extra hole, Fair's ball found the water. Lowery walked away with his first PGA Tour victory worth $252,000, more money than he had earned in any previous season combined. That same season also produced two near misses that proved the win was no fluke. He finished runner-up at the Buick Invitational of California, one stroke behind Craig Stadler, and added a third-place finish at the NEC World Series of Golf, where he held a one-stroke lead through 54 holes at Firestone before a closing round of 72 left him 2 shots behind winner Jose Maria Olazabal. 6 years later, he found that winning feeling again. At the 2000 Southern Farm Bureau Classic, Lowery opened with a round of 64 to share the lead, then followed with rounds of 67 and 65 to take sole possession of first place through 54 holes. He closed out a season that included 9 top 10 finishes by sinking a 45-foot birdie attempt on the first playoff hole to defeat Skip Kendall. 2 wins, 2 playoffs, both decided by the smallest of margins. Lowery was building a reputation, though not the kind most golfers chase. He was not known for blowing fields away. He was known for outlasting them. In 1998, golf witnessed one of the strangest moments in its history. The setting was the 17th hole at the Players' Championship, a short par 3 surrounded entirely by water, home to one of the most feared greens in professional golf. One golfer once compared facing that hole to having a 3 o'clock appointment for a root canal. Lowery's tee shot found the green cleanly. As he walked from the tee toward the green, a seagull landed beside his ball. The bird nudged it around the green, then, without warning, picked it up entirely and flew off, dropping it straight into the water hazard beside the green. Under the rules of golf, a ball moved by an outside agency must be replaced at its original position. Lowery was allowed to set his ball back down exactly where it had landed without penalty. The ruling took only a moment. The image stayed far longer. More than 2.5 decades later, that single seagull is still mentioned whenever golf and wildlife collide. The 17th hole at Sawgrass already had a reputation for chaos long before Lowery arrived, but no incident there has been retold quite as often as his. Footage of the moment continued resurfacing across broadcasts and golf retrospectives for years afterward. Of all the moments from his career, this is the one strangers bring up first. Not a trophy, not a paycheck, but a bird that briefly decided it wanted to play golf too. A year earlier, in 2001, Lowery had already shown he could contend on golf's biggest stages, finishing 3rd at the PGA Championship, 3 shots behind winner David Toms, but it was the following season that produced the moment he is still remembered for. If the Seagull made Lowery memorable, 2002 made him unforgettable. The tournament was the International, played under the Stableford scoring format where points replaced strokes. On the 14th hole, a par 5, Lowery splashed his approach out of a water hazard and got up and down for a birdie worth 2 points. 1 hole later, on the par 4 15th, he holed out his approach shot from the fairway for an eagle, 5 more points. Then came the 17th, another par 5. From over 200 yards out, Lowery struck a 6-iron that flew the distance and dropped straight into the hole for a double eagle, worth 8 additional points. In the span of 3 holes, he had pulled within a single point of the lead. Commentators reached for history to describe it, comparing the shot to Gene Sarazen's legendary double eagle at the Masters tournament back in 1935, widely considered one of the most dramatic shots in the sport's history. Lowery still lost the tournament, missing a short birdie attempt on the final hole that would have forced a tie. Yet when asked years later about his proudest achievement in golf, he did not mention either of his 3 tour victories. He pointed back to that very shot instead, still calling it the proudest moment of his entire career on the golf course. He lost that day. The shot outlived the result. Asked years later which course he would replay if he could choose just one, Lowery did not hesitate. He named Castle Pines, the very course where that double eagle happened. By 2007, Lowery's career stood on shaky ground. A wrist injury sidelined him for most of the season, wiping out his chances of competing regularly on tour. The PGA Tour granted him a partial exemption for 2008, a conditional lifeline, not a guarantee. Unlike a full exemption, a partial exemption only grants entry into a limited number of events with no promise of more unless certain conditions are met. For Lowery, that condition was steep. He needed to earn more than $250,000 within his first 8 starts of the season just to regain his full tour status. Miss that mark, and the partial exemption would run out, likely ending his career on the PGA Tour entirely. He was 47 years old, a wrist that had only recently healed, a clock counting down across 8 tournaments. It was the kind of margin that left no room for a slow start and no room for a single off week. For most golfers in that position, the story ends quietly, a name that fades off the leaderboard, a career that closes without ceremony. Few players past their mid-40s ever climb back from that spot. Lowery's story was about to take a different turn. February of 2008, the AT&T Pebble Beach National Pro-Am. Lowery entered the 3rd round in trouble, just 1 under par for the tournament, and in danger of missing the cut entirely within his first 3 holes of the day. Then something shifted. Over his final 33 holes of the tournament, Lowery played 9 under par, climbing back into contention when it looked like his season, maybe his career, was slipping away. Standing in his way was Vijay Singh, one of the best golfers in the world at the time. Singh appeared to have the tournament under control, until bogeys on the 14th, 15th, and 16th holes opened the door. A birdie on the 18th hole pulled him back level, forcing a playoff. On the first playoff hole, the par 5 18th, Lowery made birdie to win. It was his first PGA Tour victory in 199 tournaments, stretching all the way back to the year 2000. He was 47 years old, 3 months, and 29 days. The win erased every condition tied to his partial exemption. Instead of fighting for his place on tour, Lowery walked away with a 2-year exemption, carrying him through to his 50th birthday. The strong form continued through the season, including a tie for 6th at the Memorial Tournament, his best finish there in 13 appearances at Muirfield Village. Years later, asked about the greatest win of his career, Lowery did not hesitate. It was this one, the week he beat Vijay Singh at Pebble Beach. Off the course, Lowery never carried himself like a man chasing legend status. Asked to name his favorite club in the bag, he picked the one that does the final work on every hole, joking that it magically erases his mistakes. Asked about his biggest pet peeve on tour, he pointed to something almost nobody else would notice. The volunteers sometimes make more noise and movement than the entire gallery. He married and raised 3 children, Kristen, Lauren, and Stephen Jr. Away from golf, he spent his time fishing, hunting, and following Alabama football as closely as he once followed a leaderboard. Asked who he would choose for his ideal foursome, living or not, Lowery added one name without hesitation, his own father, the man who first put a club in his hands. Across 517 PGA Tour events, Lowery earned more than $13 million in career earnings, with 63 top 10 finishes and 136 finishes inside the top 25. He also supported the Fellowship of Christian Athletes throughout his career, and in 1995 received the Singleton Award as Alabama's Outstanding Professional Athlete. In May of 2008, Lowery was inducted into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, recognition for a career built far more on persistence than dominance. He never walked away from the game entirely. In 2000,